Joe Don Baker in this movie does the most Mitchell thing ever by making a cocktail, which is whiskey and Pepto-Bismol.
Yes, I know. Like Hannah burps.
Yeah.
And he's fucking gutted by like Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's fucking amazing. Yes.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
It's 1 fucking hour time. I'm Evan Husney. Of course, this is the show where we talk about one goddamn movie and we have just 1 fucking hour to do it. To my left, we got Big T, Tom Fitzgerald. What's going on, T?
Counselor.
I knew that was coming.
That's the first of many.
Yeah, right. There's going to be a lot. A lot of those tonight, of course. All the way, I won't say the FR word, but we have all the way over there, the other side of the screen, we got Mr. Marcus Herring. Marcus, what's going on?
What's up? Tom took my catchphrase for the night, so I don't have anything to say now.
Well, now it's double. We're going to be doing counselor all night. Counselor. We'll counselor off. You know?
Well, I was
the best counselor win.
Just in all fairness, Tom's been counseloring for like the last several weeks, so.
Crawfish core.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He's early on the catchphrases. It's true.
There is but it's true with Murder of Crows.
Yeah, you were counseloring pretty hard.
With 90s like gumbo.
Yeah. Gumbo noir. Okay, and our special guest for tonight is, of course, our returning champion, Miss Rémy Bennett. Welcome back, Rémy.
Thank you for having me.
Woo-hoo-hoo. All right, everybody. Tonight is episode 106, and it is going to be 1 fucking hour on Cape Fear, Martin Scorsese's 1991 Cape Fear. And why are we doing Cape Fear? Let's explain it. Of course, we are in the midst. We just starting last week with Marcus's birthday episode. We did Slacker from 1990, and we are going to kick off with that. We kicked off a 90s summer series where we are covering 1 film per year from the whole decade, and we asked y'all on Instagram to name the series, comment with what your best suggestion is for our summer series. Winner gets a free 1 fucking hour t-shirt. So
Thanks
we
for
picked
all
one.
the great submissions.
Yes.
I wanted to pick them all.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yeah. We had to only pick one. There can only be one fucking name here. So let's mention the runner-up first, Tom.
Yeah, it's traditional.
The runner-up here, sorry you came so close to this being the name of our summer series, but we got to shout you out, man, because this shit fucking killed us. Shout out to Chris Ibanez 87 for your comment, Boys to Momen.
With the spelling,
of course,
with the BOYC
Moment.
Roman numeral 2.
Yeah,
it looks great written out.
Yeah.
And I see another new T-shirt design in the future.
Yes, Yeah, so maybe if we make the Boys to Moment shirt, we'll send you one, man. So
because it's all you, buddy.
It's all you, bub. But the one we're gonna pick with is maybe the safest choice, one that I can't believe we didn't think of. And I'm gonna go with where is it here? Oh yeah. So the winner of the free T-shirt, and I'll DM you on Instagram. So look out for this from the 1 fucking hour account. Travis Medford, your suggestion of 1 fucking summer. I mean, you can't beat that, right? So
there you go.
So we're gonna go with that. Thank you, Travis. Check your DMs. You're getting a free shirt, man. So thank you so much. So this is officially 1 fucking summer that we're going to get into it. We're going to cover 1 film per year of the whole decade. So last week was Slacker. Tonight, Cape Fear for 1991. And next week, we'll tell you at the end of the show what 92 is going to be. So on and so on. So you guys ready to get this shizzo on the road? Should we do it?
Let's go.
I think
all right.
so.
Yeah. It's going to be tough for Rémy, I know. Because we're going to get into why.
I'm kind of nervous. It's one of those I'm nervous about.
I know. Well, it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Lots of notes.
Oh.
I've got notes. I've got thoughts. I've got...
Let me see.
Oh.
Handwritten.
Nice.
There's notes. There's an iPad over there, I think. Isn't there an iPad over there?
It's like I have such a deep love for this movie. I mean, it's not unlike how I feel about Fire Walk With Me. Obviously, not on the same par because that's a different level. But like, I don't know. I've got a lot of feelings, and
it's your episode. It's your birthday episode.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
Yeah, I think it's like
months from your birthday.
It pretty much
personal
is.
recollections, all that stuff.
We're actually almost exactly 6 months from your birthday. So,
cool.
So it'll be perfect.
Let's get it over with.
Okay, let's get over it.
Yeah.
Now, quickly before we hit the clock, just real quick, I got to do the obligatory sponsor messages here.
Wait, can I pee really quickly? I'm so sorry. Do you mind? Is that illegal?
Pee during the sponsor messages. You're all
Can't say pee on this show.
Okay. So while that's happening, quick shout out to the One Fucking Hour Patreon, everybody. Patreon.com/onefuckinghour is where you can sign up for just $5 a month to get instant access to our bonus shows and all of our audio commentary tracks. And we just unleashed recently a new bonus show, which was our special show and tell episode, where we dug into our personal collections, memorabilia, yada yada, and shared with each other some of the coolest ephemera we have. That was a ton of fun. So if you want to check that out, it's only available up there.
Great fun. And people get early access, right?
Everyone gets 24-hour early access to all of our episodes like this one. So you get the jump before everybody. You get to be the coolest kids in school listening to the new eps before
recess. You can say like, "Oh, you guys didn't catch what the boys said about Cape Fear."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
So there's that.
Speaking of FOMO, I mean, I just sent you guys something. I sent you the boys. Sorry, Rémy. I sent you guys a package. We could open it up on the bonus show. It's related to the show.
Really?
If people want to find out what's in the package.
Whoa.
What's in the box?
Sounds like a 90s thriller. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yes, it does. It does.
So all that lives up on the Patreon, or if you're watching us on YouTube, click the join button under this video and you can become a
Mommin.
And you get the same perks, same benefits for the same price, all the same bullshit there. And of course, the One Fucking Hour t-shirt, as we mentioned, we have some of these available. Sizes are limited now, but we have them up on our web store, which the link is in the bio of the description of this video or on the podcast app that you're listening to on blah, blah, blah. Okay, everybody. Rémy, you ready? You ready?
Yeah, I guess we got to do it.
All right. I'm going to start the clock. Here we go. All right. Just with the formalities here, I'm just going to read a synopsis for the film for the uninitiated. Okay. So Cape Fear, 1991. There is nothing in the dark that isn't there in the light except fear. Had to read that part first. 14 years after being imprisoned, vicious psychopath Max Cady, of course played by Robert De Niro, emerges with a single-minded mission to seek revenge on his attorney, Sam Bowden, played by Nick Nolte. Cady becomes a terrifying presence as he menacingly circles Bowden's increasingly unstable family, realizing he is legally powerless to protect his beautiful wife, Lee, played by Jessica Lange, and his troubled teenage daughter, Danielle, played by Juliette Lewis. Sam resorts to unorthodox measures which lead to an unforgettable showdown on Cape Fear, Martin Scorsese's remake of the classic Robert Mitchum thriller. This is a roller coaster ride through relentless psychological torment. So we're talking Cape Fear. I'm going to kick it off to you, Rémy. I know, as we mentioned, this is a super important film for you. Tell us why.
Okay, I think we probably all had similar experiences seeing it when we were pretty young. I was a little too young to see it when it was in the theater. And so I saw it for the first time, I think maybe a year later, when it was like on rental. And it was one of those childhood dreamlike memory experiences. And we were in Block Island with my family, storms outside every night. Like,
wait, Block Island, could it be something like the locale?
It could be something like Cape Fear. Yeah. So it's just that similar kind of seaside-y. Like I grew up kind of going, on summer vacations where you have like the little town and the ice cream shop and the squalls and you get,
taffy.
Kind of this whole thing. And so like, I think the first time I saw it was in that summer house that we rented. And it was like and my sister and I like wrapped in a blanket, storm outside, and it just was one of those that like blew our minds.
Wow.
And we were so young at the time that it was like there was something visceral, like it really, really impacted us in a way that then we just kept on watching it over and over and over and over. Sure. And it became one of those weird things where like I can never see it enough. Like I've probably seen it like 500 times. Like I could just, I could keep on watching. It's the same way I sometimes feel about like a Zodiac or Silence of the Lambs, like where there's something that's so formalistic about the way that it's made in sort of the craftsmanship. And there's that dark energy that's like so propels you along. I think that just like kind of like just, I don't know, overwhelmed me with, and I became sort of obsessed with it.
Well, there's also the familial trauma of, children and, murder and, all the other things that you tend to gravitate towards.
And there's daughters.
Exactly. I'll let you guys like talk about this. I don't want to hog it too much, but I think that's very true, Evan, because the movies I was really drawn to as a young kid was like The Shining, Fire Walk with Me, Poltergeist even. And like, I think it took me a long time to kind of parse through like why, like that there was so much turmoil going on in my house domestically and with my parents, and there was so much strife. And I think I was kind of obsessed with the idea of a movie about a family that's being threatened to be torn apart, and then like what that looks like, and then kind of feeling viscerally the emotions of the children in those movies. So like Juliette Lewis, like really I identified a lot with her in the same way, even in Poltergeist with the kids, like, and then the families being threatened, and you're just like, you're rooting for them so
by
much.
This like supernatural force, right? Which
exactly. And we can talk about more later, but yeah, so that's kind of my backstory there.
Wow. And I don't mean to out you here on the air, but you also said that this is your favorite Scorsese film. I mean, this is number one, right?
And it's hard because I know that's very weird. And I think like when we talk about favorite movies, like there's something, to be said for like the difference between objectively saying, oh, this is the best film, and this is something that I have the most fondness for because of a mixture of memories and attachments and stuff.
I mean, I'm all about Barry Lyndon. I don't know. That's my favorite Kubrick. Kidding.
Yeah. No, totally. You're lighting candles.
I think you're fine as long as it's your favorite Scorsese is not like Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah,
Gangs of New York.
Unfinishable.
Unfinishable and horrific. But
all right, anyway.
So
this is a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's partly based on like, the world you were growing up in, your family.
Yep.
And there was some echoing. And then also literally when you saw it, felt like there was some connection. That beautiful thing about like movies, like in an environment that's in an environment that's not unlike the environment you're in. It's like kind of haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Like siding up,
Exactly.
That's cool.
And Marcus, you were saying too, right? That like you were young when you saw it.
Oh yeah, I saw it in the theater. There was no a block on what we could watch when we were kids, really. So yeah, I remember seeing it in the theater, and then anyway, and I even saw the remake back in the day because I was sort of curious about it. The original, God, I keep doing that. Yeah, but the original back in the day,
right?
So yeah, and then just like. It's probably the first time I ever heard of Henry Miller was this movie.
Henry Miller. Have you read his trilogy? Plexus, Nexus, and Sexus?
No.
Right. Me too.
And so all the literary references and stuff. And
sure.
Yeah, so it definitely made an impact on me too. It's not my favorite Scorsese. I don't even think I didn't realize it was his movie back then. Do you know what I mean? Or who it was.
Which is also interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I just have one quick like memory of first seeing this. My dad showed me this film on home video at some point. I'm trying to pinpoint when it was, but I do know that my dad had recently installed like a Dolby 5.1 surround, system. And I remember watching it, and there was a speaker like right behind my head, and that moment when he chokes out Mitchell, with the fucking piano wire.
Right. Joe Don Baker.
Yeah. Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
He's Mitchell to me. But when that
same, I was gonna say the same thing.
We're gonna have to discuss that for a couple minutes too. Go ahead. Yes.
Sure.
The wire, the sound,
the sound design of the piano wire. choking him, there's some like loud frequency that in that 5.1 like went into my like brain canal and like fucked me up really hard. And I remember that actually as a very formative young haunt moment because of the sound design and went like straight into my brain, and it was really terrifying. And so
5.1, motherfucker.
Yeah,
there are some weird sounds in this movie. For
Totally.
sure.
Totally.
On that.
And just to wrap it up, wasn't a kid, and I was, free balling in life, very young still, and I saw it in a theater, but I had just seen Goodfellas in a theater, and I was blown away. That's a very special screening for me because I was expecting nothing from him and nothing from Hollywood in like the fall of 1990. I was absolutely blown away, and I was disappointed in Cape Fear because unfairly, maybe, I've always made an association like all the things that I'm missing from Goodfellas, which are like slower, quieter moments, like cutting the with the razor blade, cutting the garlic, and all the music supervision. It's just. But you know what? I should just relax. It's just different. Like different. It doesn't have any music supervision. Yeah. It has a score, right? And it has a plot. So,
right.
And his stuff can be kind of plotless. It's always been. I just rewatched it, and I was like, I need to take this film on its own terms because I had such a shock by almost a perfect cinematic experience with Goodfellas, and then this was like, what's going on? Because it was just consecutively the next film,
right? Which is wild.
I had a bumpy ride with it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good segue into just a little bit of the Baby Got backstory here with the film. So I'll just start it. I'll kick it off to you, Rémy. But so this was originally developed as a project for Steven Spielberg. Okay, this was for Amblin. It was going to be something he was going to do. And then for whatever reason, as the development went on, he decided it wasn't really a brand fit for him because it was too violent. And he basically was trying to find but still wanted the project to happen and convinced Martin Scorsese to do it, ironically, in exchange for Schindler's List, which is pretty wild. So, which Scorsese did, decided not to make, right? So they switched places on these two movies. Wow. Which is so weird. So, Scorsese basically agreed to direct it out of gratitude. As Universal Pictures had supported him during the controversy over Last Temptation of Christ and all that stuff. So, so that's kind of, it's a little obligation, to go into this. But what I think Marty saw in it is that, it was he loves these movies. Obviously he loves, has reverence for the original, Robert Mitchum, of course, and all that stuff, and the sort of B thriller, the B noir thriller. And I think he really wanted to see what he could do. It was an opportunity for him to do a B thriller.
To do a genre film.
To do a genre film that he had never had. And he just said, you know what? I'm just going to have fucking fun with it. You know? And that was essentially
fun. And also there's tons of Scorsese touches in the film.
Oh yeah.
And when it's good, it's about as good as filmmaking as he does. It's got such a great engine. I feel like sometimes like when it's too fast paced and it kind of, you lose the Scorsese tone of it sometimes in the pacing. Maybe that's just my impression. But on the other hand, it has a great little engine. I mean, I always have a problem when a movie doesn't have an engine. It's like stuck in the mud, I hate it. But this movie fucking starts and fucking rocks. Right? It just rocks.
It's incredible.
It's great. Very exciting. So, it's a Scorsese film. It's just different. And it's interesting to hear that it's not maybe born from his heart like some of the other projects. Interesting.
And I think that's why also it's so like interesting to me because it like he said it like it was an assignment basically. Yeah. Like, okay, so I'm given this assignment and what am I going to do with it, right? And so he was thinking like, let's take all of my reverence for melodramas from the 1940s, the domestic thriller, the noirs, the B movies, like the Hammer horror influences, and jam pack it into like what Universal wants to see as this sort of domestic thriller. Evan?
That's the key, is what you just said there, is what Universal wants. I think this was a made to order for them because what he said in interviews, which we watched an interview the other night, and it's so funny to hear him say like, I'm just making this picture and doing stuff that that like you see in the movies, now, like what
Yeah.
other people are doing in their Hollywood movies. So like he wants to give them their big action set piece.
Yeah.
He wants to, and it's also simultaneously checking off like bucket list for him because it gives him the opportunity to make a big fat action scene that he probably wouldn't make. And
because he had that formula.
Yes.
It's almost like sometimes when a director with so much kind of autism and all of that idiosyncratic stuff that makes him Scorsese, when he has that structure, it almost becomes something so different and strange and interesting, like that concoction of all those
The Shining is a
influences.
horror movie,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's weird to think that Kubrick made a horror movie.
Exactly.
Quote unquote, it's not dissimilar sometimes. And but what it is like there's a conventional framework, but he has a lot of fun with it. Like all the skies are nuts looking.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
totally
Yeah, I was gonna mention-
expressionistic,
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's very
The art-
exciting. Because that would not happen in like a cookie cutter.
Like
Yes.
sky replacement type
Yeah.
of thing, yeah.
Like-
And I wondered if that was like sort of an homage to the sort of the old Universal style or just
Sure.
the kitschiness style, because
Completely.
there are a lot of those little touches, like there's the split screen comps, like in the mirror when you can see like
love that.
and that's a very classic film technique of having two people in focus, but it's just done in split screen.
Yeah.
Or like there's miniatures in the boat scene, like slow motion,
I love how
boat in the
Yeah.
bathtub.
Like
I
he was
look-
taking all these
The
ingredients.
waves
and he
are the
was-
wrong size, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
mixing all these
exactly.
things together. And
Anyway.
yeah, no,
I-
it's incredible. And I think like what we're saying about like taking all these different influences, the Hammer horror, like Freddie Francis, who was
He's
a
on the record
cinematographer,
saying that.
Yes.
is
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I didn't know that.
And so this is really fucking cool because it's like getting Freddie Francis, who directed a lot of the Hammer horror movies, but he also shot Elephant Man.
The
He
Innocents.
shot the ghost movie, The Innocents.
Yeah.
He was brought on to basically bring that Baroque Gothic
cool.
atmosphere. And so it was literally like, okay, how do we take this genre, mix it with this early 90s thing that was so zeitgeist, and then bring in all of these other elements?
Like Gothic
and then,
Florida.
Exactly. And so it's almost like a Floridian noir,
Yeah, I
like
love that.
completely in the era. And what I find so interesting is like in that era, 91, 92, 90, we looked at all those like gonzo thrillers, and it was such a in vogue thing at that time to have these kind of domestic thrillers, but there was this kind of schlockiness to them, right? Like we love them ironically.
Love 'em.
But they're schlocky, they're cheesy. There's like he was almost taking it and then making it like a weird art film.
Yeah.
In a way that's like that was
I
so
know.
striking. Like
on paper, this all sounds great, and it does deliver that in execution. Like it's an odd duck,
Yeah.
for his career and in Hollywood, and I'm going to assume it was a hit, right?
Yeah, it did well.
It did really
and,
well.
Well, it seems like it
critically,
really
did
landed
really well.
culturally too, right?
Culturally,
Like it's
yeah.
like
But it-
all the
good box
references
office,
to
like,
stuff.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it definitely delivered.
Well,
It made
she was
like
up for
a
Academy Awards and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Like,
was.
so-
Yeah.
Juliette Lewis got nominated.
Yeah.
De Niro got nominated.
We'll talk
Um,
about her. I guess when we do chunks,
Yeah,
movie
we will,
chunks,
we will.
definitely
I'm
get
gonna-
into Juliette Lewis.
Let me
yeah.
bring some order
Yeah.
to the chaos because
Sure,
but
sorry.
no, but yeah, I mean, just to put a button on what you were saying about the gothic horror influences, it's like all those jungle scenes at the end, when they're wandering, it's like Scorsese's shouting to the production designer, he wants us to look like a Hammer horror film, and stuff.
Wow.
So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So and then when you
that.
think about sort of the big budget Hollywood nature of this movie, I mean, all these movies, Hollywood films, big Hollywood films that are coming out like in the early 90s, like Congo, and stuff like that. Like this is like all those movies that became pinball machines, this is Marty's pinball machine movie, but what smartly he did about this is, of course, he added an element to it to make it a little smarter, which is something that the original and some element that the original film did not have, which is adding this complexity to the relationship between Nick Nolte and Jessica Lange's character, like this sort of, which is very cool. Like us as the audience, it's not beaten over our heads like there's some, exposition delivered through dialogue. It's like we get to experience, that there is tension there, a pre-existing tension between these two that we don't quite know the full story of. And what's really cool is it's not just, Max Cady, Robert De Niro, as this stalking evil. He's someone that's there to exploit.
He's coming into a troubled home, not a happy home.
Exactly. I also wanted to say, like, the Shining reference that you brought up earlier. is something so fascinating because I was thinking about this so much recently in terms of the adaptation. The same thing that Kubrick did that we talked about with Stephen King's adaptation is actually the exact same device that happens here, in the sense that in the original Cape Fear, they're, happy. It's a cookie cutter, all American family. And then this evil, destructive force comes in and degrades that and threatens that and corrupts that. Yeah. And in the same thing with The Shining, in the book, happy family, and it's about the evil that's corrupting them, where Kubrick said, no, let's look at the reality of the cracks within the domestic.
They're very
within the right, and the myth of the American dream and the nuclear family, and the fact that these things are already there, and the turmoil and the tension and the domestic sort of disturbances.
Which does sound very post-New Hollywood. Like, one of the things that barnacled onto Hollywood was that there was an acceptance and even an interest in having, complicated homes under duress instead of just like, 50s happy family homes.
Yeah, and I think it's like when you look back at the movies in the 40s, those were also called domestic thrillers. It was like things that like the Joan Crawford films, even like a Mildred Pierce, like
Shadow of a Doubt.
Exactly. Shadow of a Doubt. They took place within the home, and that's why they were domestic. But it was about the dark side and the shadow, and so that was very big in the 40s. And then you had the melodramas with the Douglas Sirk films as well. And so like he's really almost like doing this amalgamation between Douglas Sirk melodramas, the domestic noir, and then with this other Hitchcockian thing all rolled into like this 90s like almost
90s
like
Florida.
Yeah, with like the
90s exactly.
The like very black hole sun looking skies that we referenced earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Oh, there's my brain's just popping off in all directions here. But just off the top of my head, there was in the Ebert review, they were talking about. I watched it today, and I think Siskel was like mentioned that it was the humor in this, the attempts at humor and stuff are sort of Lynchian, like doing a David Lynch type thing. So I kind of wanted to see what you guys thought about that, because you're talking about this film being kind of a collision of 60s and 90s. And then just wondering if what you thought about him, Martin Scorsese, being sort of influenced by David Lynch's success.
I think that reference was weird. I saw it too, and I didn't see Lynch in it as much, but what I did see, and when Rémy and I talked about this, and I do want to circle back to this because it's more towards the end of the film when Max Cady sort of becomes this supernatural creature that can't be destroyed. I think
it gets a little Jason Voorhees.
Well,
100%.
I was about to say.
Totally.
I think that Scorsese is abso-freaking-lutely referencing more that. He's referencing Freddy Krueger.
Do you think he saw Jason Lives maybe?
Dude, he mentions this in the interview.
Yeah,
Halloween, right? He mentions Halloween.
Halloween.
It is in that tradition of the new films where the character never dies, starting from Halloween.
So
Get out of here.
he's creating a slasher character out
and
of
a Freddy kind of, because with the kind of the little jokes and the dark humor and
sure.
It's Freddy.
like,
he's a
are you
catty
offering
guy,
me
Freddy.
something hot?
Are you offering me something hot?
Yeah,
Right.
it's Freddy.
Like those
It's Freddy.
little.
Max Cady is a
Freddy.
little Dennis Hopper-y
Wow.
from Blue Velvet too, though, right? Like kind of
Yeah, no,
comedic, and
totally.
really big energy and
Well, but also
imposing
Blue Velvet in this movie, like it's similar. It's the facade and the bucolic American dream, and so it's like there are a lot of definitely similar things I think around that were happening around.
But to hear that he was influenced directly by slashers, that's my big takeaway tonight.
Because I kept on saying to Evan, I'm like,
Holy
dude,
shit.
I'm telling you, like Max Cady is like fucking Freddy Krueger. Like
It
it's
is.
like
Yeah,
it gets to that point where it's like he's superhuman. He represents just like the ultimate evil that can't be killed.
He's in Juliette Lewis's Dreams.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting too,
But,
because the slashers had kind of died down a little bit by this point, right?
But you still had the New Line
influence.
Cinema.
The influence,
yeah,
Because
sure.
Even like a Child's Play or like all of those sequels of a million Voorhees and the Freddys, and it was part of the lexicon.
Freddy Takes Manhattan.
Right.
It's like the same years.
It's like
exactly
all those New Line Cinema films are still playing the theaters and stuff and doing great.
That's let's just put it this way. He goes from Freddy to Voorhees.
Yeah.
Because by the end when I was rewatching it, I was just like, oh, he jumps up again. And you know, Jason winds up in the water all the time. Submerging and re-emerging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let me steer this back to where we were just real quick. So just talking about the dynamics between the two characters. Let's start here. So one of the just first like stylistically just whoa, this movie is like doing something very unique is when we open it's not quite the opening of the film, but it's really the first moment you see between Nolte and his wife. And it's this sex scene of them in bed, and we're sort of oscillating between a black and white solarization. Then there's these amazing dips to red, which immediately made me think of Marnie, the Hitchcock film Marnie, of course, where the flashes of red play a big part in that. And then, of course, you see these great little, sequences of Jessica Lange sitting in front of her vanity, and you see the three different repeating images of her.
And the fireworks are giving all the different colors, like it's very Vertigo and Douglas Sirk.
Platinum blonde hair. And
Sure. And let's not forget, just a shout out to his musical choice, which is a Hitchcock tone and not, like George Harrison and like Nilsson and stuff, So,
and Bernard,
like what I'm saying is music is so
Herrmann,
important, and it's like it sets the tone so much.
Totally,
'cause that's like half of what you're experiencing, which is like big, lush, mid-century strings. You know, and that takes you right to old school Hollywood headspace.
And think about how rare that was too, to have that juxtaposed with the imagery. And you're right, like you said, the tone it's the Bernard Herrmann score. It's so lush, and it's just like it really takes you in this dream-like
and the Saul Bass titles, right? Another Hitchcockian kind of thing going on there with the titles,
and they're awesome too in this for sure.
When she's putting on the lipstick and that, like right in the mirror too, it's like right off the bat, it's like he's using these very dreamlike visuals to get into her psychology and like, who is this woman and what does it mean? Like I always love that. Like she's putting on that lipstick and she's kind of like, kind of trying to like center herself like as this woman and who she is and that loss of identity that she's experienced.
But she's not just a mom, which she's
right. And the housewife who's been cheated on and slighted, and she puts on that lipstick, and then it's like when she takes it off, it's like almost like the shame of that, like the shame of wanting to be beautiful and to be pampering herself, and then the colors on the wall, and she's going, and it's like that is that Floridian. There's like a pink and a turquoise.
It's great.
And she opens the shades, which is so noir, and like you're able to have this beautiful, almost like psychological dance just with her without words,
Yeah,
and
she's
I think
great,
that's
by the way.
Oh my God, incredible!
I never
she's
think of Jessica
really good,
Lange, and I can't think of any other good movie she's done. Really. But she's great. She's really incredible. It's very important to have that character really fleshed out, and she does a great job.
She's really great, and I want to just circle back because we're introduced to them in that way, and that's kind of how we are supposed to feel at first about there's this couple seems to be on the up and up here, but the visuals are giving us some indication of red flag perhaps, and then we get to this scene a little later on which shows the tension in their relationship. And of course, the one thing that's sort of happening, we have to talk about this too, because it's amazing, is the idea of Nolte's character being in total denial of admitting how bad the Max Cady situation really is. He's in denial about this for most of the movie. And there's a scene where we see Nolte and Jessica Lange kind of have this like really quick ramp up, and like they're almost like barking at each other like dogs.
I didn't let him out! Well, then
and that scene where it's like,
it's like this incredible eruption of like anger and resentment, and
and she leaves, storms off.
I would say, also before that scene, like just to go back a little bit to the scene with the fireworks, it's like that's the first moment that we see Max Cady like encroaching.
Yeah.
And there's something so like, I mean, the shot of him on the wall, which is on like the border of their house, and then you see the fireworks, is just like, holy shit. And to me, that was always this weird feeling of like, it's almost like the devil being welcomed in, and like you're still on the threshold, right? And like there's in Night of the Hunter, This evil that it's like you have the domestic and that the comfort and that false security, and then you have this force, right?
Yeah, and just to support that, just very briefly, one of the things that I find so special, the Scorsese touch, is that in the scene we'll elaborate on, the acting class, the whole setting is the big bad wolf, fairy tale setting. And I like that he plays with that he had fun with the, whatever the word is, the schematic within the plot to have a circumstance where there's an interaction that is, like it's in the context of a fairy tale, because so much of this is essentially a fairy tale, of like blowing the house down, with the big bad wolf, and I love that.
And good and evil and vengeance and I think it's a morality play, which all fairy tales are.
Can I say one, just while we're on this subject real quick, so that scene I was mentioning where they sort of erupt in this tension and you're sort of like, oh my God, like what is going on between them? There is some sort of history there that we're not sure of, and then of course, as the film goes on, Nolte's character starts to finally come to terms and be honest with himself that Max Cady is a real problem, and that, which is illustrated amazing in that moment, which maybe is the most Goodfellas seeming moment in the movie, where he takes the gun and starts shooting it randomly outside from the porch.
Oh, towards the end,
towards the end. But Scorsese remarked that scene and what he was trying to do with these characters was sort of trying to take more traditionally waspy characters like this and make them more like his paisanos, that he has. Real sort of
a little
flawed
olive oil ethnicity.
Yeah,
right.
But I think that's a really funny thing too, because it's like a New Yorker, originally from the Lower East Side, that his world, when he's looking from that world into the world of the genteel South, and it's this imaginary, town in the North Carolina, South Carolina, and it's looking at like what are these archetypes, right, of like the Southern gentleman and the Christian values and law and order and all these things, and white trash and the opposite of white trash, and
there's a class dynamic that
major.
At least De Niro keeps harping on,
No, and I think for as a New Yorker from outside of that world, like he's really looking, I think, at the hypocrisy of that as well, and like the costume choices with De Niro with the garish, Hawaiian shirts and the white trash piece of shit,
which does look like a mobster on vacation.
Yeah,
exactly right. And so that's kind of his reference for that. Yeah. And then you have the facade of Bowden, of Sam Bowden, Nick Nolte's character, of the perfectly coiffed, bespectacled, Southern gentleman.
Bespectacled and respectacled.
Respectacled and respectacled.
That's what I call him. Yeah. Do we want to start? We're kind of bearing the lead, though, with De Niro's big Brava premiere, which is one of my favorite chunks, the movie theater. Just go for it. Start getting into De Niro here,
Sure. Yeah. So we can get.
I was just going to say briefly that I think like he's just talking a lot about like the hypocrisy of that, right? And that like what is really behind the Nick Nolte character? He's cheating on his wife. He's not always honest. He's like, so it's like we're using these two.
He's kind of the staircase type of guy.
Right, and showing like what is this morality really? You know what I mean? The kind of hypocrisy and falseness of this.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
he's losing it too. Nolte, like he's got all these. He hires someone to beat him up. He abuses his daughter. He's like, he's cheating on his wife. The daughter is like, kind of like revolting against her parents. The mom is having like a breakdown. Like everyone is having like a problem in this movie. There's. Yeah. Which really stands in contrast to the original, where like Gregory Peck is just very perfect.
Yeah. And Max Cady's saying like we're the same person, like look at
right. A little Blue Velvety, by the way,
right?
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and he's becoming a lawyer in his mind, right? Yeah. Max Cady's becoming. I'm getting all smart, right? And you're becoming a criminal now.
We're just two colleagues. We're two colleagues having a discourse about the law system. But also, you also mentioned that just really quickly, the scene of him hiring the guys to beat him up, which of course is in the most like way possible with like the like metal clubs and the bicycle chain. Like what the fuck? All right. Max Cady, Robert De Niro. Obviously,
De Niro, his performance. Let's do a chunk.
Yeah. I know. I got a huge. I got it here. Crazy stuff. Really, just wild performance. The opening, how we're introduced to him in his jail cell, of course. shout out to, I think it's Captain Marvel issue 56.
Oh,
He has cutouts from that, pasted on the wall there with a Black Bolt and Captain Marvel, which is a weird choice. But obviously
I love the lettering of the tattoos. Whoever did the
amazing.
lettering looks really good.
Incredible. There's
It's like
great photos
graffiti
of
almost.
that. There's great behind the scenes photos of him getting the tattoos applied. Speaking of those tattoos, guys, just like great script choice here in this is the moment, which happens obviously a little later when he gets arrested, and there's the lineup sequence. Very smart to find a way in a scene to show how, he has to strip down, so we have to see all the tattoos, but then Nick Nolte can see the tattoos through a one-way mirror, and then that's how he's seeing. It's a great visual representation of just how much he, is passionate about his revenge. You see it on his skin.
Look at him or read him.
I don't know whether to look at him or read him.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
It's like barely any tattoos for today, too. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like we're used to see people covered head to toe now.
Yes.
No, but
that was a
I
lot.
think also what Evan's saying is like the continuity of the messaging. Every tattoo is like, and God's thunder of vengeance.
Right.
It's like
I'm gonna come
very
fuck you
consistent messaging, and it must be alarming to the Nick Nolte character.
Just a nice set piece, a smart way to have Nolte see every tattoo is through the one-way mirror. It's a great
the
idea.
Consistency of it,
It's great. Yeah.
And he's got all his Nietzsche stuff, in his in the prison, and of
course.
So there's also a lot of that shit going on. Like Max Cady is the hyper real, like we said, like the Nietzsche idea of like the Superman, the superhuman. Like he's going through hell to kind of like transcend all this shit, and then he's forcing people to like
that
see
at least
their
is his cope in the 14 years of being in prison.
Right.
He hashed something out, because if he wanted to be a truly Superman, she would go beyond just petty revenge and be like running corporations or something, so he's definitely got a huge Achilles heel, and that he's stuck down in the circle of hell of just vengeance, very base.
Right. And feeling like I was, there's people who benefit from the system and those who don't benefit from the system, so that goes back to also the class thing where it's interesting. So it's like, he's sort of that like
he didn't have a chance. He wasn't, he wouldn't have been counseled that way if he was rich, but he's also a piece of shit because he clearly like horribly raped someone.
And he's also a piece of shit.
The OG thing is fuck you. Yeah, go 14 years. Fuck off. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
He raped her,
And
like,
but she was a loose woman. Like
which is very dated, of course. But the thing is
I wouldn't say that.
Well, not too dated, I guess, unfortunately. But you know what I'm saying is too. But one observation you also made last night, Rémy, is the weird similarity between De Niro's Max Cady and Hannibal Lecter. Like, there's also a weird similarity there. I mean, both bite the face off of somebody else, in this,
Well, the tongue-in-cheek stuff too. It's like it's weird. It's like there was something happening in that time. There.
Yeah,
right.
The fava bean. There's even like a weird.
They talk
liver
about like
eating
eating someone's liver.
They talk about eating someone's liver. It's a weird something. In
they
the
also
air.
have zingers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
too?
Zingers. Yeah.
Totally.
Exactly.
There's a lot of weird there.
But the scene, the problem child scene.
Yes.
You were saying, Tom, like just
I
like the
love
movie theater.
that.
I mean, that moment too, like that made me think about The Shining, because that's the scene, the problem child, it's him saying like, here's daddy.
Right.
Like it's problem child doing The Shining.
Right.
Which is
and I was like, that's fucking weird.
John
That's
Ritter,
weird.
like Nicholson parallels. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I kept on thinking of The Shining more and more in terms of this movie and the parallels. And then I was like, problem child, I never put that together.
We actually see a lot of problem child too, like much more than you think that you would.
Yeah.
Kind of living in that world for a while.
That's my vote for the moment, by the way.
Yes.
So anyway, Max Cady, he is the guy that is the manifestation of evil, that is exploiting the cracks. Wrath that is exploiting the cracks that are already there in the facade of this perfect family. He sees that vulnerability from 100 million miles away and uses all of that to his advantage. And that's what's interesting about this. Now, probably the most sadistic and horrifying thing he does in this entire movie is what he does to Ileana Douglas, which is, like, as you said, Tom, before we started recording, borderline unwatchable. I mean, she's amazing in the
terrible.
film. She's great in the film. I always love seeing when she pops up.
And
in a
she's
movie.
so cool and like
She is.
Yeah.
you know, her performance is so natural and she
Yeah.
seems like a really fun, cool person. And to
Yeah.
have that, you know, on her,
Yeah.
it's nothing to do with her. It's not even vengeance on her. It's like by proxy. It's just, and the way he does it, it's so repugnant. It was very off. It was just about the most off-putting thing I've seen in a movie in the watching this big screen.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's really hard to take.
Yeah.
It is.
That
It's
moment's
it's
really hard to
really nuts. Really nuts.
Especially because she's established herself as being like this warm, very human
Yeah.
character. Like she, you know, like you're seeing this happen to not just some stick figure.
Yeah,
but like,
exactly. And that's,
you know?
I
It's
think
rough.
that's, you know, as rough as that is, I think that's also to the credit of, you know, Marty for making all of these characters so three-dimensional, which is what separates it from, you know, the bunch. Yeah, so that's insane. And then we should also shout out to, you know, Juliette Lewis. This is
Yeah.
pretty much her debut film, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
And just my little 2 cents is just, like I said, like I saw this in the theater and I'd never heard of her. And the scene at the big bad wolf scene, I never do this, but I went like, we're looking at a star. There we go. And it was borne out, you know, and she did follow this up with Husbands and Wives. Woody Allen, great performance.
Yep.
Natural Born Killers soon
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. Well, but she was the classic like Lolita. Like she became such like a poster child for that sort of archetype in the 90s.
But she
Kind of white trash
shreds.
archetype, I think, right? That
Kinda,
became
yeah,
her
but she,
shtick.
well, not in Husbands and Wives.
not in this movie, but in
No.
other movies after
Yeah,
that, I think.
but
you know?
she's range. Husbands and Wives is very different. But like she shreds in
Yeah.
specifically that
She's
scene.
incredible.
Yeah.
But
It's
in her
like, isn't she in California
I
too?
don't know. It's like
Yeah.
it just, you know, he fixes on her face and there's so much happening
Oh, yeah.
in her
Yeah.
face milliseconds when she's talking and listening to
Right.
Max. Okay, it's
Yeah.
stunning. You know, I
Yeah.
just rewatched it. I was like really blown away. that
It's
she-
like this
she's like
complete
19.
vulnerability. She's a little younger, I think, when she
18.
actually made the film. She was like
Yeah.
maybe 17 when she made the
It's
film.
great.
Yeah. Okay, so that's another thing I want to just like give a shout out to this movie in terms of like the casting and the strength and how solid these performances are. Like, I think that's why for me too, like this always just like was like miles and miles apart from all of those other thrillers at the time. And I think for some people it kind of got lost in the mix, or like, you know, it's not one of Scorsese film that people like think of as iconic movies. You know, the VHS cover had that like classic with the family picture kind of like torn apart with, so it has this vibe. And then it's like, but the performances of these actors are like, I think it's each of these actors, not De Niro per se, but like Nolte, Lang, like Julie at their best. Like they're like almost like
agreed.
stellar and so honed. Like the way that Jessica Lange, that characterization,
She's great.
like of this, the rawness of that person and the resentment and the strength. And
No, at the end
it's
when
incredible.
she tries to convince him to like, you know, at least lay off the daughter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like we have something we could share similarities.
Yeah.
And that's a killer.
And there's
she
this,
shreds.
and Nolte, you know, it's like seeing him in that, just taking on that kind of character. It was so kind of different from what he had done before, like
He's-
48 Hours and that rough and
You know, and he's
tumble.
become
kind
a
of,
will
bit of
say
a
he did-
punchline.
He
Right.
had just He had just done the Prince of Tides,
Yeah.
like either the same year too, which is also another weirdly another home invasion movie, and he's like very emotional in that stuff too. So I think he was like looking to strike out and do different things like
Yeah.
around this time, you know.
Yeah.
There's just this realism and I think, Evan, you were talking about that earlier, like the scenes that I think also struck me so much as a kid was like seeing the realism in those fights between the Nolte and Lang.
Yeah.
Like that is real shit. Like that is real,
Well, weren't you
domestic,
saying-
like the
It's
nuances of that.
surprising. You know,
Yeah.
it's a sort of a campy exercise, the whole film.
And then you're seeing the dynamics and talking about like the past and the therapy sessions they had and all those really yucky, complex feelings that happen within those kind of
weren't
marriages,
you-
you know,
we're-
and then the young girl. Yeah, sorry. Evan.
Weren't you talking about also earlier that, you know, Jessica Lange, you know, in her real life, obviously, you know,
Yeah.
was in a relationship
With Sam Shepard.
With Sam Shepard. So
Like
she's-
I can't help like think about that. Like it's like I feel like this is the role where she really like brought herself to that part. Like you know, you just imagine like her and Sam Shepard for years and years, and this man who's like philandering, and she's having to hold it together, and like, and I feel like it's just her like bringing all of that power.
Yeah,
you know,
method
for the
acting.
first time.
I think so. Yeah.
And and then seeing Juliette Lewis in those moments, like to me, that was so realistic. Like they're in those fights and then the camera whips around and then Juliette Lewis is gone and slams that door. And then she has MTV on and the Jane's Addiction video. And
that,
you know, it's, and then you're in that teenage world.
2 seconds?
Yes, please.
Because I wanted, it's actually, I just thought of this. There are 2 Mystery Science Theater punchline people in this movie, Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater. You know, like they always make fun of Nick Nolte, and Mitchell, like you said, has become, that's kind of on Joe Don Baker's gravestone. But I've always thought he was a pretty cool actor.
Great.
And he's really great in this. Mitchell was a one-off. I'm sure he didn't. Why would he take being in Mitchell seriously? Why not just be drunk and coast through it and get a paycheck? No, that's what I'm saying though. But like when he needs to, he can act, and he's quite effective. And the screen loves him. Like, and he's great in this.
Yeah,
I gotta say one.
Sometimes
I gotta say Martin Balsam also in Mitchell.
Yes,
he is. I gotta say one, the guy who plays the judge, Martin Balsam, of course, from Psycho. You know, he's also in Mitchell. But everything you're saying is correct, Tom. But Joe Don Baker in this movie does the most Mitchell thing ever by making a cocktail, which is whiskey and Pepto Bismol.
Yes, I know. Like kind of burps.
Yeah.
And then he's fucking gutted by like Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's fucking amazing. Yes.
Yeah, that is.
So cheap. It's such a cheap because it is the you guys rewound it right. It is the maid the first time he walks in and her voice.
Yeah.
I love that.
But hey,
it's a movie.
But like Scorsese takes it one step further,
Yeah.
with which is so fucking crazy that Nolte comes in, sees Joe Don Baker on the floor.
Stop it.
Okay, and then there's all this blood, and then it's just like 30 seconds of Nick Nolte slipping and flailing in the blood.
Like that reminded me of Reservoir Dogs, actually.
Right.
Because all the slipping in Reservoir Dogs in the blood.
Yeah.
Just maybe Martin, he just loves movies, and he's like really excited about how much shit he could jam in this movie.
In there.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did say like at one point talking about the humor in this, like maybe we did too much. He was like, you can tell he was like trying to see how much shit he can kind of cram in there.
He was like pushing the envelope.
I do kind of, actually maybe speaking to that, I do want to keep touching back on like De Niro here. And the controversial thought I have sometimes is this performance the ushering in of the camping of the new Hollywood actors, and gets us later to like, she's got a great ass.
She got a great ass.
With Pacino, like
with the Pacino over the
like
top.
Going really big and so broad and it's like campy. Like he didn't act this way, like literally act this way before, even in Goodfellas. And I don't have a problem with it. And he has a lot of range, but like it's a big, and also it's a real character. But it can get campy almost in this 90s boomer.
Not only is he doing an accent, but his voice is up a little bit. Like he's talking in a high register too.
Even without closing my eyes, I can picture him. Big, friendly, shaggy, sleep at your feet.
It is like, it feels very voicey, even if he's good in a performance
he's
overall.
Speaking in tongues at the end.
It's a little
That's amazing.
There's some really outrageous chicka. He's like going into the water
like
there
the
at the
camp
end.
level here. Like Pacino always crosses it, but like he's getting into like
He's going under the water. It's like Popeye. It reminded me of Bluto and Popeye.
It goes like way beyond, like, and
it's very big.
It's interesting because these are all choices that they made, and they made them really strongly. And so I feel like something about this movie too is like each choice was like they just went all in on it, they take it to the hilt. And so
it's
you're
operatic. It's big.
Exactly.
It is. But let me say too this real quick, because like I was thinking about this. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think De Niro's played like a straight up villain before. So like obviously there's characters in the there's a gray area there. Travis Bickle's not really a villain per se.
He's sort of a tragic figure.
He's a tragic figure.
So is Raging Bull.
So like this is him being a menacing, throwback to
Goodfellas. He's pretty scary in Goodfellas.
Yeah, he's scary.
There's different kinds of psychopaths. Yeah,
he's still an anti-hero. He's still someone that we love Jimmy. No, I know. And
he's a big pure villain in this film.
And he is like the devil. Like I think that's part of it. Like he is supposed to be a monster. And he's
Yeah.
not supposed to be a human being. Like
Right.
he's a symbol of all these things.
Yeah.
Like
He
hanging
is,
under a car for like 300 miles.
Well, we got to talk about
and that's
that.
what Scorsese was kind of laughing about. He's like,
Can we
okay.
do the next 15 minutes on that?
Yeah, well,
he was
let me-
like, maybe we took that too far. Maybe.
Well, he
But
said
what did
like
he say about
he
that?
said he
was
said
like,
that he said that because that's the point when we were watching it last night that I'm like, okay, with this movie.
It also made it iconic. Like that did the
It
Simpsons episode. Like it really did.
The
Sideshow
Simpsons
Bob.
one answers all the questions. Like, what if you drove over a speed bump? What if you
Yeah.
drove through a cactus patch?
I know.
Or like
Yeah, but-
Sideshow
but
Bob. But,
it's-
so like, those are those kind of campy moments that
But he's
really
Freddy.
did become.
He's Jason.
you know,
That Jason Voorhees would do that. And the thing
Yes.
about it, it's like and Marty talking about it, almost laughing, talking about it literally right after he made it too. This isn't
Yeah,
like in
laughing at it.
hindsight.
That's cool.
He's talking
Yeah.
that it says like and then with Max Cady on the bottom of the car, it becomes a different film.
There's that element of fun that we had with it, especially when it becomes a slightly different film by that point when he's under the car. We were playing around. We thought it was actually kind of tongue-in-cheek in a way. Maybe we put too much in. I don't.
And
because he talks about it being like the pathos
No, he
and the
sa-
symbolism of this thing
Yeah.
that you can't get off your back,
He
and it's
says-
like it's following you in this shame.
It's like a non-human creature.
Yes.
Right.
It's like somehow like barnacling on like
Yes.
a slug or something. It's
But
like
I think he thought of it like in a
alien.
way like these were the But
said-
like he was looking at it all like symbolically, like Nick Nolte's character has all this shame, has all this guilt, like it's this thing that like he cannot shed, and so Max Cady is like
manifestation
relentlessly.
of his
Yeah.
guilt.
Well,
I
it's
have
funny
what he
because
said.
there's this deep
Right.
symbolism to it, but he's also not taking it so seriously.
No.
So it is sort
Right.
of tongue in cheek too. So there's this
Yes.
weird duality to it. It's symbolic and it's like
And he's kind
lighten
of
up,
making
guys.
a
It's just a
joke.
movie. There's two
Yeah.
sides to
it's,
it.
it's kind of like he said that it's like it's this fear or guilt that you can never get rid of. It might as well be pinned under your car, while you're trying to run away from
Yeah.
run away from it. But it's like,
Inescapable.
but like what it sort of reminds me of, that tone, Marcus, of like tongue in cheek, but also being symbolic, is I think it's Scorsese doing what Brian De Palma does, but better. Like it's like he's nailing what De Palma's tried his whole career to try
That's
to
a
do.
good point. Great De Palma.
Well, looking at
Blowout.
those, and I think like those, comparing those two, like I really, I think a lot of those De Palma movies are really trash. Like I love Blowout, but like Dressed to Kill, like, and they're fun and funny, but they're so like schlock. And they're trashy, and he's trying to do the Hitchcock thing, and it just comes across as like very gauzy and
Very
trashy.
labored. That's what
and where this has this very like slick, it's super slick.
and like we say, it has this great
stylish and-
engine. I mean, I'm not a
Right.
huge De Palma person, and like to compare them, it's like because
No.
this film has this great engine, great performances, really moves. It doesn't slow down and like whack itself off, looking at like this slow pan. It's like fuck off, like just-
Right.
All the Scorsese camera moves are in there driving things
Oh.
forward.
Definitely.
Like there's that great
Holy
sequence when he's he's walking down the street. The counselor's walking down the street and we're
Counselor.
panning with him. And then you pull back to reveal he's in the car. There's a great little cut, like Hitchcock cut with the car scene too. And when the counselor's trying to pull away and he reaches in and De Niro reaches in and grabs the keys.
That's great.
And,
Yeah.
there's
That's the first
just
encounter.
like quick cutting.
And the
and-
quick cuts.
I also like that
and like
you
when,
have,
when they're in the house and
I also like how you have like the very kind of Hitchcock, just pure cinematic storytelling too. Like it's a kind of a throwaway moment, but it's like when you have Nolte in his office and he's there early on in the film, he gets a phone call from his wife. No, it's urgent. You got to pick up right now because the dog's been killed. And it's like, okay, pick it up. And then just hard cut to like close up of him in the car on his way back home. And you know
and that
everything
anxiety, like the
that's
whole
happening.
exact when he's there in the car and he's gripping the steering wheel and then
But the economy,
Right, the economy.
the pacing,
Boom,
it's
boom, boom.
incredible.
Yeah.
it's the only way to do a movie. Like that's how you make a thriller. Is
Yeah.
by,
Yeah. Well, you're being
having
taken on that
momentum.
ride. You just and you
exactly.
can't get off that
Exactly.
ride, and it's like
And,
Yeah. So
any other chunks?
yes. So just to put a pin on it, because maybe Rémy, you wanted to mention it, but because Tom, when you're talking about that iconic scene everybody remembers with De Niro and Juliette Lewis in the theater scene, it is sort of like this idea where you're saying of like, the German Black Forest. Like it is sort of like, representative of like, because the Black Forest is like, that's where in German folklore where all the evil lives, and that's kind of what they're recreating with that, which is just an amazing stylistic choice, to do that. Really, really cool. Great set piece there. And I do also just want to Rémy, do you have something on that or?
No, go for it.
Okay. And I do just want to mention getting into the last set piece, because I want to just talk about that, and then I do want to hit on the cultural resonance of this film, because it's runs pretty deep. But to talk about the ending, just the big set piece, like we were saying, it becomes Jason Voorhees, and the exact phrase Scorsese used to describe the last act is like, he kept saying that the movie then turns into movies of today. So he's like, again, it goes back to what I was saying, is like he's essentially doing what he's hired to do. He's delivering a blockbuster that is in vogue at the time. He's answering the assignment, and
it would fit right in. It wouldn't
fit right in,
stick out like a sore thumb at the
right
multiplex.
Yeah.
Right, with him returning from the water and not being able to die like Michael Myers, and it's just amazing. That set piece is so unbelievably big feeling, and it took him, I think he said 6 to 7 weeks to film that.
Oh shit.
Yeah. About
like
6 weeks, I think.
Holy shit.
There's a lot going on.
And
but I think also in terms of what's happening in the boat, like I think it's cool in terms of their characters, and like when you're looking at the through line of the family and that narrative of like them fracturing, and then how do they find each other again? How do they reconnect? And it's through this intensity and violence and fear, and it's like it is kind of the Nietzsche thing again, like through that destruction and that threat to their safety is when they actually like find that authentic connection.
It strengthens
they're
the bond
eating the
of the
food.
family.
Right, and she's saying like, "Oh, are you gonna go fishing?" He's like, "I'm gonna go fishing." And like all of a sudden, for the first time in the film, you're seeing these two people who seem like they actually really love and care about each other.
The threat of death is just what they needed.
Right, and
that's very Nietzsche.
Children getting raped, and and so I think that whole scene at the end, like it becomes also very Straw Dogs. And I think that stuff, like all of those themes, I think are really, really cool to talk about. Like, what does it mean to be a man, and the nature of like your primal nature, and
to fight for your life,
fighting for your life. And he looks at his hands and the blood on his hands, and he has the rock, and it's like he's fighting to save and protect his family, and all of that artifice of being a lawyer and having money and all this shit, like just that melts away.
Yeah.
And so I think those are cool.
Well, and also
those are cool
another
themes.
layer of all that's interrelated is what we were saying earlier about class and the sophistication and the polish of an upper class waspy white culture, upper middle class. And like they've come to a place where they don't have to sully themselves or dirty their fingernails with anything in particular, much less getting down in the mud and fighting for your life.
And you know what too,
100%.
it's also kind of a commentary on the materialism too of their life, because at any point in time they could probably just leave Essex County or New Essex or whatever, but no, they don't want to leave behind the things that they have, of course, because of this.
Right.
It's
right.
It's something they're not going to just do right until they had to, of course. So can we just talk a little bit about some of our favorite cultural connections to this movie? So somebody go first, and then I'll give you the big finish. Does anybody have?
I have one off the top. There's one I didn't realize it till this time, but there's always this scene that stuck out to me in Strangers with Candy, the TV show, the Amy Sedaris show, where she sticks her thumb in a girl's mouth. She's like, "I'd never hurt you," or she sticks her thumb in like her girlfriend's mouth or whatever. And it's like, it always stuck out. I mean, I just realized watching it this time. Oh shit! There you go. There's a Cape Fear reference right there.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, funny.
There you go. Anybody else, or should I go on mine? Okay.
No, I would just say The Simpsons. That was
the Sideshow Bob. That was
wonderful.
Right. So mine is, of course, maybe one you'd never expect, but this shows you how successful, like when a movie's successful and it taps into the zeitgeist and it finds its way into the world of professional wrestling, that it's become a success. So this is just wild. So in the early 90s, and I'm sure the year or two after Cape Fear came out, there was a wrestler, we've had him on Dark Side of the Ring. His name is Dan Spivey, and he had a gimmick. He had a gimmick in the early 90s that was called Waylon Mercy. That was
Oh, he looks familiar.
based
Hawaiian
off
shirt,
of-
tattoos.
Yep, he had all the
Wow,
tattoos
dude.
and he wore the clothes.
What does it
and-
say? The tat?
I can't,
Retribution?
Retribution, yeah. And he and so but he would play the Max Cady character to a T. He'd speak in the Southern accent. Check this out though. He would come out to the ring, shake all the audience hands, act like a very nice Southern man, and everybody's okay, and he's a good guy. Then the bell would ring, and he'd be extremely violent, and he would be this violent.
Oh my
force,
God, I didn't know about this guy.
Yeah, so
wow.
That's
so that
amazing.
was
That
was
sounds
kinda-
like a moment. With,
yeah, it is.
Yes,
That's
yes.
got to
There
be
you
the
go.
moment.
There's-
Yeah.
Oh my God.
natural
So-
born moment.
Yeah,
It's
so-
wild how many times it landed in culture. There's a Seinfeld reference. There's a Seinfeld, there's
Really?
a
Yeah.
Seinfeld. Yeah, there's a Seinfeld
Yeah.
episode where his uncle Leo is like gets put in jail, and he's like doing a workout to like get revenge on
right.
Jerry.
Oh
and
my
then Jerry wakes up
God.
from a dream, like
That's
freaking
hilarious.
out about it.
Yeah,
And there was a
it
Ben
made
Stiller
big
show
impact on-
parody, like straight up parody, like a fake. What if Eddie Munster was
Oh my
Max
God.
Cady, and
Yes.
he was mad at the
God.
producer for canceling the Munsters or something?
Oh, it's a whole bit?
It's a whole
Oh,
bit.
wow.
The Janine Garofalo is
Wow, I've
Juliette
never seen
Lewis.
it.
So
Because-
your
Oh my
boy
God, okay,
Bob
we gotta
O
watch
is
it.
in it.
Bob Odenkirk?
Bob
But
O.
because I saw the still of the grotesque laughter in the movie theater
Yeah.
in the Ben Stiller, but there's a whole build.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
a whole
Yeah.
sketch. He does
Gotta
the whole
watch that.
walking into the camera thing, but he bumps
outta
into the
here.
glass.
There's a lot
instead
more
of,
than I thought.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Hey, Marty,
I
that's one
know.
of the true tests of making a classic is,
Yeah.
like how often does it get...
And I think Juliette Lewis's performance too, like, has a lot to do with it. I think people were really disturbed by that dynamic
Yeah.
and the young girl. I wanted to, before we finish, that's something I wanted to touch upon in
Sure.
terms of my defense of the reboot.
Sure.
And I think that's like when we talk about remakes, reboots, which I normally hate and abhor and feel like it's cynical, there's no reason for it. And this is my one example of reboot walkout I am not walking out of, that it's justified in so many ways on so many levels. And I think it's one thing, Marty has the reverence and you can see that love. And when it's made with love, that's also like the cameos from Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum, and they're handled so elegantly and beautifully. And it's about honoring
Absolutely.
those legacies. And it's not just like a, cheap, but also something that's important is that this was based on a book in the 1950s called The Executioners. A lot of these books, when they were written, like Jim Thompson books and Highsmith books, they were so gritty and deeply disturbing and dark. Really, the pathos was, intense. When they were making the film adaptations, obviously at the time period, they weren't able to reflect that.
They got
in-
whitewashed.
They couldn't, yeah. So then you had these adaptations that were like, they were getting somewhere close to what the source material, but never
Right. The
reaching
plot,
that
maybe.
disturbing.
Although Robert Mitchum is pretty scary. And
Totally, but then you see where they couldn't go there with
But
the
I know what
daughter
you're saying.
character.
Well,
You
I
could-
think of it
yeah.
like Chinatown, it takes kind of a 70s,
Yes.
the 70s freedom
Yes.
to address all these topics in a
Totally.
period piece.
Ugh.
And
Yeah.
what would otherwise be a noir film, but it has gnarly stuff.
Yeah.
And I have always loved that.
I
This is
love
one-
that.
This is one of those, yeah.
Like, I think it's so cool. Like, it takes those things that were kind of skirting around those issues, like raping a young girl or your young daughter, and like they couldn't go there. And in this one, it's like they really go there. And I think that's one of the reasons why
Unrestricted.
audiences
That's a
were
good point.
shocked. And I like the idea of taking source material and saying, well, what can we actually do that kind of honors the author's intent?
Yeah, yeah.
More so than the original film could do. And so it's not really a remake necessarily of the film, it's an readaptation of the source
Free
material.
adaptation than the
Freeing
Hays
it,
Code
yeah.
bullshit restrictions of the past.
Yeah.
It does seem like the success of this movie led to all the remakes that would come after in the 90s. So since the 90s was such a remake era,
I know,
all the way up
sorry.
into Psycho 98, of course. But
Yes,
the Flintstones
yes.
movie, but it does seem like this movie was
Yeah.
such a success as a remake that it really
Oh.
set the stage for that to
Yeah.
be something that happened.
But
in the
I just
90s.
think like Marty like brought that reverence and it
But
created
I know what
something
you're
that
saying.
was
It's
just
not as
truly-
cynical.
Yeah.
Like taking like IP and like rebooting it, but
Yeah.
it's like, let's take another stab at this great subject, these great characters,
Right.
and not be like bound by the
Yeah.
Hays Code. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What can we
Yeah,
really
right.
explore in a darker, deeper level
That's
that
great.
really goes there? So that's why I'm like, I'm an evangelist for this movie.
Okay.
So
Zip
Gotcha.
it.
Zip
Zip it. Okay.
Hang around.
All right, everybody. That was
We
one
did it.
fucking hour.
Happy birthday,
on-
Rémy.
thank you guys. Thank you for humoring me on that one.
Yeah, I think remakes, not reboots. I think that's the lesson of the,
Yes.
the
Of course.
episode.
Yeah, reboot is such a
Yeah.
a corporate word.
Corporate
anyway.
term. All right, that was one fucking hour on Cape Fear, everybody. That is your 1991 entry into what we are branding now officially One Fucking Summer here on One Fucking Hour. And let's talk about next week. Very excited. Seems like it's going to be back-to-back Rémy, right? Rémy's going to...
You might as well just sleep right here.
Yeah.
Oh my
Must be
God,
some
totally. I'll
familial
just stay
trauma.
here.
Let me guess. There's going to be
Might
some
as well stick
familial
around.
trauma.
A little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Trigger warnings all
Go in
around.
the file cabinet, get the
Yeah.
other notes.
Yeah, right. Oh, the notes on this one. This is going to be...
The books and the novels.
This is going to be maybe one of the hardest hours. It has to be. It has to be. We'll have to figure out some way to whittle
Yeah.
it down. But for 1992, Rémy already mentioned it earlier on in tonight's program.
That's right.
We saw some people commenting, hoping that this title was going to be covered last week. And of course, here it is. We're going to be doing 1992 David Lynch's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me as our 1992 entry. So,
Damn.
holy shit.
What? How many Lynches has it been? Is
We've
this
done Mulholland and we've done Lost Highway. That's it.
Last time, so it's the third. Okay.
This is the third Lynch.
We have
all
a lot of peakers on this, show.
No, we've done.
too.
Well, we watched Blue
yeah.
Velvet.
we did the Blue
commentary.
Velvet commentary.
Oh no, I'm just saying a peaker being a fan.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Twin Peaks. Outside of David Lynch being a Twin Peaks fan,
I don't know if
it's
Tom
also
is.
problematic.
Tom, you haven't seen Twin Peaks, right? Or have you?
Not the
can't remember.
reboot. No,
Oh,
I haven't seen
not-
the reboot.
But you've seen the original
What?
series?
Yeah, I've seen the original.
Okay.
I need to rewatch this film. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm having echoes. We'll discuss it next week.
I
But
know, I know.
Like incredible, urgent enthusiasm with like Blue Velvet, and then like kind of get a little wobbly. But I need to get over that and just watch these films
Yeah.
piecemeal and just let them.
The
breathe.
only thing
Just,
I will say about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, if anyone out there has not seen it and they're going to see it for the first time, whether you've seen the series or not beforehand, I always tend to appreciate Fire Walk with Me the most when I in my head compartmentalize it from the series and just
Yes.
think about it as a standalone
Yes.
work that's not in part with the series.
divorce it from even
I
his
do
career.
because
It's really hard for me to do that, honestly.
So,
Yeah.
No,
I-
that's a really good advice.
But I do because I think it's more rewarding in that way because I think the themes in the film, which we'll get into, stand alone in that film. What the
Yeah.
film is really about.
Yeah.
I always look at it.
Laura's story, it's like it's just Laura's story.
And for me, when it's good, it's as good as he gets.
Yeah, it is.
That's
I agree.
So there's a lot of value.
I've said it
Next
before, and I'll say it again. Last tease. I think that it's the scariest film ever made. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I think it is too.
We'll get into it. Okay, and not in terms of just like the scares, it's the scariest.
Just like the
I've ever-
deep, dark,
scary.
deepest, darkest it can kind of get.
Deep and dark.
It's
so
dark.
We're gonna get into that.
Garmin Bozia.
Garmin Bozia, and that'll be next week, everybody. All right, so shout out again to the One Fucking Hour Patreon, patreon.com/One Fucking Hour. It's the best way to support the show, just $5 a month, or you can click the join button underneath this video and become a moment on YouTube as well. And we appreciate your support. Thanks to everybody who's
As always.
done that so far, and anyone who's ordered
take
a
the journey
shirt.
with us this summer.
Yeah, man, get ready. Summertime, man. One fucking summer. And we'll see you next week again for Twin Peaks. But before we can't let you go without your
Mom.
I broke it. One more time.
Mom.
There it is.
There it is.
Come on, Jerry. Come
Yeah,
on,
I had to get
Jerry.
some WD-40 on that moment there. So,
right.
all right, everybody. Well, have a good rest of your week, and we will see you on the other side,
sure.
man. 92.
See you
All
all next week.
right. See you later. Bye.
Hello, people. It's Waylon Mercy again. Out here enjoying this peaceful surroundings, enjoying nature, enjoying these insects, enjoying this worm. But you know something? I enjoy worms, but I don't enjoy worms crawling on me. Just like when I get in that wrestling ring, I don't like wrestlers touching me, and I definitely don't want them crawling on me. And if they do so, I'll tell you what's gonna happen. They're gonna get smushed just like this worm. You know what I mean?
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.